Hello guys, this is Agnieszka from Den of Imagination and welcome to Efreeti tutorial from Wizkids model series. This is a basic level painting tutorial, so if you are new to the painting world, this tutorial is just for you. And for this tutorial you're gonna need burnt umber, burnt red, scarlet, dark sea blue, grey blue, white, green brown, bright browns, gunmetal, stone grey, brown ink, sepia ink, silver, dectan, sky grey, old rose, black, and sun yellow. Hello guys, my name is Agnieszka and welcome to new tutorial. This time we'll be painting a Efreeti model from Wizkids. Let's just start. So first step when you're dealing with new model is to take care about the primering stuff. So the first step is to primer your model, and Wizkids have models already primed, so here we don't have to worry about this. But before you start your painting, be sure that you will cover your model with primer. It can be black, it can be light gray, it can be any other color that is sufficient for you, that you chose for your color palette, or at least you are comfortable with it, or the one that you have at home. So cover the model evenly so you don't see any bare model from the underneath, and just give it a moment to get dry, and then you are ready to start. Our first steps will be to paint the base coats, and I also want to kind of mention that you should plan your model ahead. I mean, which parts are you going to paint first and how? So for the first parts that we are going to paint is the skin and the base. So we will start with the base. We will be painting it with the burnt umber color, and because the base is kind of wide, we will be using wide brush. So this is a wide brush size 6, and with it we will be painting the base. So take your paint, shake it of course before you were using, and put a little bit of it on your palette, just a little bit. It's always better to use a little bit of the acrylics on the palette. So right now I am wetting my brush in the water, just a little bit, and I am tipping really the tip of the brush. I am not using the whole bristles, just like the first half of it. So while I am painting the base, talk about the paint and its consistency. While you're painting with acrylics, very rarely we are using paints without mixing it with water. But of course you cannot add too much of it, because then the acrylics are kind of behaving like a wash more than a water. Just add a little bit at the beginning. If you will prefer for your paint to be more liquid, you can always add more water. It's much more easier than taking off the water from the paint. Base is just free to dry, and I will take care right now of the skin. I will put the first base coat on the skin, and to that I will use this color, which is burnt red. Round brush size 3. Shaking off the camera. And I am putting just a little bit on it on the palette. The base coat shouldn't be too thick, and it should cover the whole surface evenly. A good base coat is the sign of a good painter, so just take your time. This is really easy step. This is just the beginning of everything. So, and if later you will see that you can still see through some some of the under layer, or the surface from underneath, it is quite okay. You can always add another layer, like second layer, even the third layer. Just remember that we don't want to use too much paint, so the details will be still visible. So now, like I said, we will be using glaze to actually make this highlight stronger, because dry brush is also a technique that calms down the color. Glaze allows us to make it stronger. The same color, which is scarlet, for round brush size 3. The technique is a little bit different. Water with your brush, a little bit more than just wetting a brush. Clean. We have clean and half dry bristles of the brush, and we can still have a very sharp tip. Choosing the peaks, the highest places of the muscles, here on the neck, when we kind of predict that the light will be the strongest. And every time you are wetting your brush or cleaning your brush, remember to dry it up a little bit with your paper towel. Thanks to the liquidity of the paint, and because it's half transparent, I am not afraid that even if I will put a little bit too much, that after drying it will have this kind of like a very strict border between one color and another. I will have this smooth transition between the colors. I will take care now of the rest of the parts that are not painted. So I will put the base coat on every single part that is not painted yet. And I will begin with the skirt. Dark sea blue, white brush. For now I am concentrating myself more of these wider parts. If you're scared that you will overpaint, for example, this place when the skirt is actually meeting with the skin, right? So you can, for example, use later the round brush with the tip to safely cover this place with the paint, or you can just slowly but steadily use the same brush as you're using right now. After skirts, I will definitely leave it to dry. When you're adding later layers with dry brush, with glaze, definitely it better works when the undercoat or the layer underneath is dry. It's not really a problem because acrylics dries very fast, but don't be too quick with it. Give it really like 5-10 minutes to get completely dry. Alright, so that's how looks the ready skirt. I really took care that every part and every fold is painted. For now I will wait for it to get dry and I will prepare myself to paint another parts. Now, because our skirt is ready and what's most important, it's completely dry, I will proceed now with the first highlight on the skirt, and for that we will use dry brush technique as our first base layer, and then I will proceed also with glaze as the same with the skin. For this I will use the color gray blue, and for dry brush of course it will be white brush. Alright guys, and as a reminder, try to move your brush very gently over the surface, build the tension of the color very gradually, don't force your brush on the surface, and of course you remember that your brush is also completely dry and you're moving the brush from up to down. So now I'm going to proceed with the second layer with the same color but with glazed gray blue, so round size 3. So I am putting a little bit of the paint on my palette. I am taking water with my brush and I'm mixing this water with the paint, so I have this kind of like half transparent paint. Make the light stronger with this kind of like half glaze, half lining way. And I will do the same thing on the whole skirt. Now, as you can see, our highlight is much stronger, but I am going to add another color of the highlight, gray blue, that we use for dry brushing and the glazing of the skirt, and also just white color. Round brush size 3. I'm going to mix them on the palette, additional glaze or lining, it's like dependently on the moment of the skirt, and to add just a little bit of this stronger light that would even more emphasize this, gorgeous layers of texture. I will try this here a little bit if I am satisfied with the shade. Try to search for the color very slowly so you can find the right shade. I will choose the places when the sun is actually maybe the strongest. So now that the biggest parts of our model are already painted, I will now take care of every single piece that is still not touched by the paint. So I will start with the leather and the rest of the clothes that are still not touched, and then I will take care about the gold and the metal of his sword. So let's start with the leather. For this I will use green-brown color and round brush size 3. So this is normal, just putting a basic layer, nothing really fancy, so just take a little bit of your paint. Of course, remember to shake it well before you will start. It may look lighter than on the box art, but later I will put wash on it, or ink in our case, and it will make this kind of darker shade with shadows and highlights. Alright, because now the leather and the clothes are painted, now I will take care about the gold elements, his jewelry, and the piece of his sword, and also the ornaments on his skirt. And for that I'm going to use the bright browns as a basic color, and I will paint again with the round brush size 3. Sometimes with metallic paints, one layer may seem not enough because they are built in a different way than normal paints. They have different mediums and different pigments. So if your paint kinda doesn't cover the surface with the first layer, don't worry about that. Just allow it to get dry, and after it, just put another layer. And I will do exactly the same because, as you can see, my paint is kinda transparent looking. But I don't want to force too much paint when this layer is still wet, so I'm going just to take care about the rest of the elements and then go back and add another layer. Now I'm going to paint the sword, and because this is kind of flat and large surface, I'm going to use different brush. I'm going to use the white brush for painting this part. Color gunmetal, white brush size 6. Alright, so the next part is scrolls on his back, and for this I'm going to use stone gray color as a base, and also for those wooden parts, the burnt umber. So I will start with the burnt umber and with the wooden parts of the scrolls, and then I will go with the stone gray for the paper. For this I'm also using the round brush size 3. So I'm taking burnt umber, putting a little bit on the palette, wetting my brush, dipping in the paint. Here you have to be careful not to overpaint the belt, but even if you will do, you can always repeat the pattern. For the scrolls themselves, I will use stone gray and the same brush, which is round brush size 3. Now it's time for washing, and for this I will use brown ink from Gaming, round brush size 3, but on all the parts except the sword. Later I will show you the trick how you can actually use washes or inks on flat surfaces, but for now I will concentrate myself on those parts as like gold, his bracelets, the leather, and any part that actually needs some shadowing, which is also the scrolls. So when you're washing, especially with inks, You have to be a little bit more careful than with normal washes because they have more pigment and they are stronger in color. So what I'm going to do is I'm taking a little bit of water and make it a little bit more lighter in shade. After this, I am cleaning this brush, wiping it out to have more control with the paint, and I'm just starting to washing. For now, I will just, put as much wash or ink in our case as I want for it to look deeper, and later on I will take out the excess of wash with the clean and dry brush. Okay, so let's, for example, right now I put an ink on the belt. I'm cleaning right now my brush with water. I'm wiping my brush on the paper towel, and I am taking the excess of the wash with the brush. And I'm going to repeat that step on the holders part. So now, as I said, I'm going to show you how to wash the sword, because even if we painted the sword with the gunmetal color, it's still a little bit too light. That's why I'm going to use another color of the ink, which is sepia ink, brush size 6. So I'm putting a little bit of ink on my palette. And what's very important, I am taking it and mixing with water so I have less stronger color. Now I'm taking waterish ink on my brush, and what I'm doing is I'm painting on the surface of the sword this thin layer of this ink, and it's getting more brownish, darkerish, but thanks to that I'm putting a very thin layer with half dry brush, I will not get stains or dirt look afterwards when it gets dry. And I'm doing the same on the other side. Now that the inks are dry, I will highlight the sword. For that I will use silver color. But before I will start, I'm giving you here an advice, because metallic pigment can fall off from the sword on the model. So before actually dry brushing the model, I will cover it with a paper cloth. For this, I'm going to use a silver paint. Now that the dye brush on the sword is ready, I am going to highlight the scrolls, and then I will highlight the rest of the part that needs some lights, like his horns, and when I will do that, I will focus on his face. But for now, the scrolls. Alright, now I'm going to put small highlights with dots really on the wooden parts of the scrolls. And for this, I am going to use a green brown and using, of course, the round brush size 3. Toes. So for this I am going to use sky gray and round brush size 3. For the next step, we will take care of the base, and I will do it with the dry brush. The first color that I will use is green brown, and as for the dry brush, we already know the best brush is the white brush, so I will use the white brush size 6. Alright, so now for the second step of the highlight, I will use the same technique, which is dry brush, but the color will be a shade lighter, which is deck 10, and of course I am sticking with the white brush size 6. Now it's time for the last highlight of the skin, and for that I am going to use the Old Rose color and round brush size 3. And also about the technique, I am going to use lining, which is literally just drawing a line alongside some strategic places. So for the eyes, I'm going to do the 3 steps painting, and the first paint I'm going to use is the black paint. For the brush, of course, we will do with the round brush size 3. So we will start by painting the shadow in the eyes and in the mouth. So I'm taking a little bit of paint, and actually I'm going to mix it with more water this time to get this kind of like ink structure. And I'm going to paint the shadows around the eyes. So this is kind of tricky because this model is folded and in position that it's not very easy to touch, especially the left eye, but I'm going to try my best. So for the second step, I'm going to use color white and round brush size 3. And what I'm going to do is to paint the eyeballs with the white and the claws in his mouth. And for the last, I'm going to paint the eyes with the yellow color, sun yellow to be exact, using of course the same brush, which is round brush size 3. What I'm going to do is to add this yellow color to the eyeballs, so the eyes of this model will be like popping up from the face. Hope that you enjoyed this painting tutorial. Be sure to share your results on social media and tag us at Den of Imagination. We would really like to see your results. If you have any question about the tutorial or you would like to see a particular miniature painted, please leave it in the comment section below. Also, please click the subscribe button and bell notification, it helps the channel. Bye!